her whole thing, which I said on my panel today, is that the way you do something is the way you do everything. When people say, oh, I'm trying, or I'm just, it's a big one that people say, just, or I'm a starving artist, or what are the words that you're saying that are somehow limiting you from being your best self? We were talking about just motivation and stuff, and how he learns and how he studies for craft and for a role. And he said, Liza, you have to learn every day. The day I stop learning is the day I die. So let's rock and roll,
let's do
yo.
It. All right, so where were we?
Yes, so where were we?
Are you back on here? Okay.
All right, so we were talking about, you said my cartoonish version of my life, which I think is funny that my life's a cartoon.
It's, I mean, to the normal person.
What is normal?
Right? I don't know. I mean, I am definitely abnormal. But to the lay person, right? Using you had Dalai Lama in that sentence, and
Correct.
Mario Andretti and some other ones.
Correct.
So okay.
Okay, so I have a community called Love Bug Nation, who some of them I'm sure are tuning in now, and my whole thing is I see the world through love-filled eyes. So I'm known for traditionally wearing my heart sunnies. I have them in over 72 different colors, styles, variations. I just came back, actually if you hand me my purse, I just came back, it's a little heavy, I'm gonna warn you. I just came back from the Olympics, so we had a special pair of heart sunnies that have the American flag.
Love it.
Yeah, so I usually am known for that, and the whole thing is I see the world through love-filled eyes, and so the content that I create is all about educating, empowering, and inspiring others, and entertaining them, but in a positive way. So I never share anything negative. I think there's so much negativity in the world that the thing I can do to combat that is by sharing positive news, and I encourage my community, the love bugs, to do their daily part in putting love seeds back into the world so that we can have more of a community where they're doing the things that they love and encouraging them to work smarter, not harder. So I do that while I'm traveling by sharing the people, the resources, the places that I love that I generally think that they should experience or try out or meet. So that's kind of how the whole community comes together, and I'm very blessed that big people have taken notice, like the Dalai Lama. So last year I was invited to his birthday party, and it was fantastic because he hadn't really heard about live stream. And when we went to his event, people bought tickets, and there was about 5,000 people that were there. The event had sold out, and Curry was one of the speakers. He had Zendaya, all these different people, and I was among them. And I was really pumped to be there. And when I showed him that on our phone we had about 13,000 people watching, he literally stopped. And Peter, I have never in my life felt like I had been reborn. But we did the whole signage and the piece, and we did the forehead to forehead like matching, and it was such a blessing from him. And he just, he thanked me. He's like, thank you for being an agent of love, because you're doing the same work I'm doing. I'm like, okay, you're the Dalai Lama, so I'm not really sure what you mean by that. And he's like, no, you have to understand. You were able to connect this message of love with people by the palm of their hand. They didn't have to spend money. They don't have to put their lives in danger. They didn't have to get on a plane, take time off of work, leave their families. They're able to do that all from their phone, and that's something I wish I would have had. So when it's my time to go and I'm not here anymore, I would only hope, thank you, I would only hope that people like you will continue to do that.
Yeah, that's rad. So if you accomplish nothing else in your life, I think you're pretty much.
I mean, that day I said that, I was like, if I die today, I'm good. This is a wrap. Now I do have a need for speed. I am a huge automotive lover. I love cars, and so this actually worked out really well. Verizon, who I worked with last year on a brand campaign, brought me out to the Long Beach Grand Prix, so not too far from where we're at. And I went out there and I had an opportunity to meet Mario Andretti. And when he saw me, he immediately went, "Love Bug Nation," and I'm like, what? He's like, I know you, where are your heart glasses? I was like, right here? And he's like, oh yeah, oh my God, how are you? So we started talking, and I got invited to hot lap with him in the two-seater in the car, and it was like me and the head of Fox that were gonna do this. And so he's like, how good are you with speed? I'm like, I'm good. Literally go as fast as you can, and if I die today, I died in your hands. Literally, I will be so happy. So it was on the Jumbotron, they live streamed it, we had it on for my audience as well, and But anybody that was in the stands in Long Beach, they had it on the big screen for them to watch. And so at the end of it, we took our picture, and they wanted some promo pics. And so I was like, oh my gosh, can I get a picture too? And he said, well, only under one condition. And I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, if I can wear your Love Bug Nation glasses.
Oh,
so I was like, yeah. So then I got a little cocky. Didn't mean to spit in your eye there. I got a little cocky. I was like, only if I could borrow your helmet. And he's like, all right, I'll swap you. So we swapped. He got my glasses, and I'll send you the picture, and I had his helmet, and I just was like a kid in a toy store. I was like, geez. So it was pretty awesome. It's really being able to follow what I love and be of purpose at the same time has allowed me to connect with other people who are doing the same thing, much like yourself.
Yeah. It's fun to fulfill that purpose. I actually have a mic that's stuck to my chest.
Amazing.
And it unstuck.
Amazing.
So you think I'd have enough?
Because I spit in his eye, guys.
You spit and it ran down, and now
Literally,
my mic's
I was so excited. It was like, yeah.
You think I have enough chest hair to like keep it up there? Anyways, so how are you fulfilling the purpose in that you're spreading this love with? I'm gonna hold my mic up now. With your.
Do you want me to tape you?
No, I don't know. I'm okay. With your community, like, what is it that they like? What's their takeaway? How are they applying it to their lives when they see like what you're working on?
So I think it depends on the day, right?
Yeah.
So I was just in Brazil for the Olympics, and so one of the things there was people really got very excited by being able to go along for this ride, get this behind the scenes view that they weren't seeing on TV. We were walking through everything. I told them I got all my shots. I saw one mosquito, like literally one, and I think he was half dead. Peter, seriously. It's winter down there. There was no Zika anywhere. Yeah. And so what they always tell me, because I do travel to all these places, Dubai is another example of that, where everybody thought I was going to have to be overly covered up, and because I was a woman, I was going to have to walk 10 steps behind everybody, and that was to the contrary. So what my community many times have said is that they appreciate the fact that I'm able to show them how stereotypes are not existent in that way, as opposed to just tell them, because people can tell you in print all the time this doesn't exist, but you're like, yeah, I don't know, because there's enough articles, or clickbait telling me that it does.
Right.
But when you're really there and they're seeing it, and they're seeing you interact with the people in Brazil, or seeing how windy it is, or I'm going into a mosque in Dubai, or I am with the Dalai Lama, and we're talking about all these things. I was fortunate enough to be at the White House this year for the United States of Women Conference, and I was one of Flotus's guests, and so being able to be there and introduce them to some of the other people on my same page, like I was like, okay guys, these are people that you're inspired by and I'm inspired by. Like, that's exciting, and I don't know, it's funny because they'll tell me, but you're also the celebrity, like it's so funny to see you fangirl. I'm like, I'm just like you. Like, the little girl in me is so excited, and I think that's the big key to it, is there is a certain naivete to me, but I also think that that's my biggest asset, if you will, because I want to just experience life to the fullest, because I had a very difficult childhood, and so I really want to show people that it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving.
Yeah, I love that. And the thing is, like, they get to see it, like you were saying, it's one thing to read it in print, it's a whole other thing to actually see somebody kind of in real life experiencing what you thought was impossible. Right?
And when it's live, they can comment and literally be there in real life and feel like, oh my gosh, I just saw you, or can you ask that athlete this? One experience we had, we were flying back from Rio, and we sat in front of Tiana Bartoletta, let me say that right, and she's a 2-time gold medal winner from Rio, track and field star, and one question that came in immediately is, can you ask her what she did with her gold medals? So I was like, Tiana, do you mind if I ask a question? And she's like, what's the question? I was like, don't worry, it's nothing bad. So I asked her, she's like, sure, I'm traveling with them in my carry-on. They're literally right above your head. Great. And I was like, yes, you guys, I feel golden. This is like the closest thing I'm gonna come to being an Olympic medal. And in having that conversation, she's like, oh, here, check out the Nike, shoes that I wore. And I was like, wow, these are cool. She's like, you like them? I'm like, yeah. You guys look, and I'm turning them around. She's like, you see that guy sitting across from you? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, he designed that. So I was like, what? So then, of course, I was talking to him. I was like, how did you design this? And he told me about how long it took to design and prep them, and how they made them for all the athletes. So it was cool because it was a very real, in the moment experience, and we were able to go along with it. And my audience themselves then were like tripping out.
Yeah, you're beaming them into it, right? And what's cool about it is like, so family and I, we had a trip around the country, 4 small kids, 8 and under, and the whole thing was for me, it's like I want people to know like this is all possible. Like, you don't need to like work within the constraints that you think you have, right? Like look, watch me. I have 4 small kids. I'm like the craziest person on the face of the planet with my wife. We're traveling the country in a minivan. Like, if you have excuses about why you can't travel, well, guess what? You don't have them anymore.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And what did you say though with that too is, especially as a parent, like I'm looking forward to getting married and having kids and being able to do this with them, because I have found that the world is the best classroom. Literally the best classroom.
So you don't know this, but we homeschool.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that. That's what I want to do too.
Yeah, so the world is a classroom, man. And I mean, the kids are like learning stuff that they never would have learned if they were behind the desk for 8 hours a day. And I acknowledge that like not everybody can do it, but know that you have a choice, and that there's another possibility that's pretty fun.
But you also can do like a variable, right? So I was saying with my niece and even with my goddaughter, like she was going to start Mount Rushmore was going to be her big assignment. So I was talking to my friends and I said, why don't your big summer trip this summer, take her to Mount Rushmore, have her see it in person, have her take pictures there, do the selfies, have her do the whole Gen Z, way of capturing that data, so that when it does come up in a couple of months, she can actually reflect from it and now speak from a place of experience. So even if you can't do it 365 days, pick a couple of things that you're like, me as a parent, I want my child to see this year, but also me as an adult, there's this one thing I want to see. I started my January saying, I didn't know how this was going to happen. I wanted to be at the Olympics, and I wanted to see Christ the Redeemer. I just said, it's 2016. My third one is that so every year I do 12 destinations I want to be, but experiences I want to have. Okay. So I want to drink a mojito in Cuba, right? Like I wanted to be looking for peace under the Christ Redeemer. So there were certain experiences that I asked for, and it's the power of manifestation. Yeah. It all came together. Next thing you know, I'm in the Olympics, and I remember being I took the Olympic torch up to Christ the Redeemer. Like I just don't even know how much better than that it gets. And I just like looked up and I was like, yes, universe, you are so badass. But if that was like my one experience that I had, that would have fulfilled me, right? So I feel like if we send those benchmarks for ourselves every year, that drives that slow hustle, because that gives us a place to go, right? Yeah. That moves and motivates us every day to wake up with a sense of purpose. And if you're a child, that excites you about learning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, I mean, dude, if you had to read about Mount Rushmore versus actually going there, actually seeing it in real life, actually learning about it from the guides and from the plaques, right? Because you always stop to read the plaque, as they say, 99%.
And like the little noses where the construction or things that need to get fixed, like you could see it.
And more importantly, you remember it, right? And the biggest thing for me is like, this is your connection with learning, right? And your learning can be super negative, it can be stringent, it could be tests, it could be reading, it could be in the classroom, or it can be super positive and amazing. Because learning doesn't stop, right? When you get out of school, you're gonna learn forever. So do you want your relationship to learning to be super positive? Right. The Mount Rushmore example, or do you want it to be negative, right?
One example that I heard, it was Al Pacino. He said, the day I stopped learning. So I had the good fortune of working with him on a film, and we were talking about just motivation and stuff, and how he learns and how he studies for craft and for a role. And he said, Liza, you have to learn every day. The day I stop learning is the day I die. And that's something that stayed with me, that I'm like, he's right. What can I learn today? How can I push myself today? What more can I do so that I'm really fully maximizing the time that I have on this earth?
All right, so now to rewind it even further. Like how did this start?
Yes.
Like, why?
Okay, so we're gonna keep it on the rail here. So my audience knows a lot about it. So as I mentioned, I had a very tough childhood. So as a child, I was sexually molested by 3 different family members. So it was my uncle and 2 cousins. One of them was the son of my uncle. So I fully believe that he was probably molested by his father, and that's why he felt the need to molest me. He was in high school at the time. My uncle was in his late 50s, early 60s when he started molesting me, and then my other cousin was in his 20s. So it started when I was 6, and it happened pretty much every day until the time I was 8. So the thing that saved me, I speak Japanese, and there's a Japanese character called Hello Kitty who I was blessed enough to find. So there were 2 things that really got me through this tough time. Disneyland and Tinkerbell, which I'll get into in a second, but primarily Hello Kitty. And why? Well, I don't know if you know, but Hello Kitty doesn't have a mouth. And the reason she doesn't have a mouth is because she speaks the language of love. So love needs no translation. So she can easily make friends. She doesn't have to worry about words being misinterpreted or anger being there. No matter who she meets, she will always be surrounded by love. So that really registered in my head, and I thought, well, if she could speak the language of love, I can choose to see the world through love, and somehow, some way, that's going to create a loving environment for me. So I was really focused on trying to find the best in everything. Like, I did not want to give into the tape, if you will, that my uncle had set for me, which was that I would never grow up to be worth anything, that the only reason I was on this planet was to be used for sex, that the reason my parents had gotten divorced was because I wasn't a boy. He threatened to kill my grandmother, who was taking care of me at the time, and do something to my mom, who was traveling between Southern California and Northern California to put bread on the table, food on the table. So I bought into all of his threats. But on my end, I thought, well, the one thing I can control is my vision and like what I can see. So in doing that, I also would, when I was being molested, I would float away in my own head to Disneyland. So I would think of myself as Tinkerbell, and I would be like, okay, I'm gonna go to Disneyland, and so I would become this limp body, like on the table, and usually it was in the garage, and I just would go away. So what was interesting is once I relieved or removed myself from that situation, my mom started realizing something wasn't right, because I went from being this very charismatic and happy-go-lucky kid in school to just being very introverted, never wanted to smile, always wanted to be in jeans and cover myself up. I used to walk home from school with the rock in my hand. I always felt like everyone was out to be a predator against me, and she didn't quite understand what was going on. So she thought that maybe it was because she had been spending time away from work. So she decided to move me out of this environment. And so when I was 8, I stood up to my uncle, and I remember telling him, like, never again. You will never be able to hurt me again. And I know you don't think I'm worth anything, but I'm going to prove you wrong. And it's okay. It's okay. I'm going to go on and I'm going to do amazing things. He proceeded to slap me. He called me a bitch, and I went on my way. But when I left there, and I remember like wetting my pants, when I left there, I made myself a promise that I would never not have a voice again, that I would be even more committed to seeing the good in the world and try to figure out how I can bring that into my life, and that I would always stand up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. So I continued to kind of take this philosophy with me, and it helped me excel in a really big way. So I ended up being a ranked debater. I was on mock trial. I played tennis. I did all these things and became this overachiever. I was the first in my family to go to college, and as I mentioned to you, I went to Middlebury College and to Harvard. And so through all of that, I was like, oh my God, it's this whole vision of seeing the world through love-filled eyes. So when I got on TV, I continued to just share this philosophy out, and I thought, well, what am I going to call my community? And I'm like, well, it's kind of what I talk about, right? So I always call everybody a love bug. So I was like, okay, we'll be Love Bug Nation. And I would always look for heart glasses or anything heart related. And I mean, you could see it from when I was very little. There was hearts everywhere, because I was really focused on that being my totem pole, because that was my true north, if you will. And yeah, so that's kind of how it started, and it's continued to grow, and it really ties into this bigger field of like, I was able to really shift my world to be a world that surrounds me with love. I don't tolerate any type of bullying in any of my platforms. Like I said, I don't speak negatively or share negative news. And through that, I really live my talk by showing that it isn't just about surviving, being a victim of sexual abuse or doing these things, but it is about thriving and showing what more can we do. Because I've realized that had that experience not happened to me early on in life, maybe it wouldn't drive me to be so philanthropic. Maybe it wouldn't have driven me to reach higher and get out of these very modest means and go to college and, you know, be a political science major and learn Japanese and be this traveler. Like, I feel like a lot of it came from having just such a shitty start. And I think we all have a shitty start. And you and I have spoken about this. Like, some people get it in the beginning of their lives, some people get it in the middle, and some people get it in the end. But our job is to remove that shit off of the record that we have. And once we do, that song that's underneath there that's going to play, that we each uniquely have, will play beautifully. But until we dedicate ourselves to taking that shit off, all you hear is that sludge, right? Yeah. But if you're able to really move past that, oh my God, like the world appreciates it, and you yourself, your soul appreciates it, because you're able to move yourself forward more so than you ever even thought.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing the story.
Yeah.
So I got a couple things.
Rarely do I share it, by the way, which is funny because you actually mentioned that in your panel the other day. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, for real. So a couple things. One is, why were you able to take a negative situation and focus on the positive? Like, how did that happen? I mean, I know that you did.
Yeah.
But how, right? Because so many people cannot remove the sludge from the record, as you said. I love that metaphor, but it's like, or that visualization. But it's like, you know, most people are just like, man, you know, I had a bad life. I grew up, you know, I had bad things happen to me. I guess I'm just destined to be little or meek or, you know, insignificant. Like, how were you, or why were you able to be like, no, this is the positive. I'm taking this. I'm empowered.
Yeah, so I fully credit my mom and my grandmother. This is where I make it emotional. My mom was a single parent after she divorced my dad, and she was a young mom, and she was really trying to figure out, how the heck am I going to raise this kid? So little did she know she was actually giving me the biggest gift, because she would take me with her when she would go to bookstores to start learning about how to raise my child and self-help. So we would go to the self-help section and she would sit down and read a book, and then she would sit me down next to her. So I immediately would start looking for the things that were colorful. And it started during this time while I was being molested, and she had no idea what was going on, and I was keeping this secret. And I remember one of the first ones that I saw was, what color is my parachute? And I remember just being fascinated by the little colors of the parachute on the outside, and then I'm okay, you're okay, if I'm okay, you're okay. Then Norman Vincent Peale, she started reading him, and she bought his books on tape, and she would listen to them in the car. And we would drive from LA up to San Francisco for weekends, and I would be listening to them. And I really, so many things that he said, talking about just the power of the mind, really set with me. And I fully credit that, and also my grandmother's very traditional Mexican way of raising me, that, you know, was about culture, and her whole thing, which I said on my panel today, is that the way you do something is the way you do everything. So she was very committed to me being a person of character, and knowing that her biggest saying to me used to always be like, if you get a no, that means you just have to find another way to a yes. So in my household, bad words weren't just the F word and other things like that. Can't, try, got, maybe. These were all bad words. And if I ever said them, I had to give 5 cents of my, which was a lot when you're 6, okay? 5 to 25 cents, depending on my infraction, had to give that from my allowance to her, because my mom said, you know, the world is already going to try to limit you because you're a female, and you're a Latin female, and you're a Latin Jew on top of that, right? So you should not give the world any more excuse to limit you by limiting yourself. You need to get out there and be as fresh-faced and work as hard as you can, and then combat that. But if you're starting it off already with one hand tied behind your back because you don't believe in yourself, you're screwed. And so I really took her philosophies in, and remember reading that, and with my grandmother, and like I said, in Hello Kitty, like that really just in my head somehow made sense. Like, there's books about this, you know, okay, I see people. And I remember there was this one book, and I can't even tell you the title of it. It just had Lucy from, you know, Charlie Brown. And it said like, the doctor is in, and it was this little cartoon. And I told my mom I wanted this book, and she's like, I mean, this book is for like someone in college or something. And I was 6. I was like, no, I just really like the picture. I need this book. And she's like, okay, fine. And I remember inside, the 3 words that stayed with me is, believe, do, and shine. And I could read them, and I understood them, and they resonated in me, that if I believed something, I could do it, and I would shine. So that was somehow the angels up above, I think, just put those things in alignment in the right way. And these are the things that I clung on to, and luckily was then able to form my philosophy from.
I love it. I love it. It's so inspiring to me. So, I mean, what's your advice to someone who's watching or listening, and they're in, you know, they've had this loop, as you say, like it's playing in their head of what's happened to them, right? And maybe it's recent, maybe it's a long time ago, and they haven't been able to get rid of it. I mean, what's your advice to that person?
So a couple of things, and thank you for asking that. I think that's a great question. The one thing that a lot of people don't realize is all of us as human beings, we create a tape in our head between the time that we're born till the time we're 10. So those first 10 years are very formative and very informative of what is going to happen the rest of our life. It is the tape that we psychologically just keep playing, either subconsciously or consciously, right? So the first way to rechange that, or to alter that, I should say, is to acknowledge that it's there. So I always suggest to people, take 10 minutes, like have a little journal by your bedside. Take 10 minutes just to write, what are the doubts that come up in your life? Like, put yourself on that word diet, as we were talking before we even started. When people say, oh, I'm trying, or I'm just, it's a big one that people say, just, or I'm a starving artist, or what are the words that you're saying that are somehow limiting you from being your best self? What are you doing that you're already putting yourself with one hand behind your back before you get started? So you can start identifying, okay, where is this coming from, right? And then you can kind of reset that track. In addition to that, there's a great tool that I've used called Holosync. I don't know if you've ever used it. So Holosync is great. If you ever watched The Secret, one of the guys from The Secret, he created this way of listening to music. You have to have headphones that are very specific. Don't do it when you're driving. And what ends up happening is it neurologically starts changing your brain waves. So where there is gaps in your synapses firing due to a trauma, it starts mending them, and it mends it perfectly, like mends it permanently. So he has a lot of different people that he's worked with, famous speakers, authors, personalities that we all know, that are household names, that have used this, and it's really helped them get over it and not be emotional about that past story, right? So you listen to that. You can even just get like the free intro video. I got a little addicted because I was like, this works so good, that I did the next level, which I think was like $110. But even just the free one, he has like 3 or 4 of them that you can listen to. And that really just helped me reset my mind as well. So those would be the two, just very quick ones that you can do. And then from there, every single day, I really set myself up, and I'm sure you do this as well, to set my day up for success. Oh, yeah. So I always have the 3 olives / toads. Some people say eat the frog. I call them olives because I don't like olives, and I'm allergic, and I just don't like them. But I realize sometimes I have to eat them. So what are the 3 olives that I need to eat today in order to be successful? What are the 3 ships I need to send out today? Because as we know, unless you send out the ship, the pirate never comes back with the booty, right? Yeah. Like, you got to send them out. So what are the 3 ships? Is it an email? Is it a phone call? Is it a scary, introduction, or reach out to someone on Twitter? What are those 3 things I must do? And then what's the one thing I can do to give back in any way? So it might be buying someone dinner, or it might be taking a mentor call from the emails that I've gotten and say, hey, all right, I have 10 minutes for you. Like, what do you want? What's the one thing I can do to give back as a way of thanking the universe for all that it gives me? And then finally, what's the one thing that I'm grateful for? So I set myself up with that every single day, the system. And in doing that, I really feel I end up getting so much more done because I have so much energy. And people always ask, Liza, do you drink coffee or you drink Red Bull? I'm like, do you think I need some Red Bull? Do you think I need some coffee? Like, I genuinely am so grateful for life and happy to be able to wake up and be alive. But I think it's due to that formula.
Yeah. And then, we had a panel earlier today about mindfulness and talking about morning routine. Morning routine is huge. Everything. It's like, dude, how many people start the day, you wake up, you roll over.
Don't do it! Don't be on Facebook! Don't go checking your phone.
Right?
Yes.
No. And it's like, what do you think is gonna happen?
Yes.
Like, what do you expect to happen? Bad shit's gonna happen. Like, you can't do it. You can't check your email.
Especially in this election cycle, you wake up and it's something Donald Trump said again, or insulted some new person, and I'm like, I can't see another meme. No.
Yeah, you can't, man. And so, like, for me, it's not only like having a habit of like an amazing breakfast, which I just drink like the most disgusting breakfast every morning, and it's like.
Wait, do you do smoothies or?
I do smoothie every single morning.
Yes. Yeah. I did my chia seeds with my almond milk today. Okay. So getting little nuts in my yum.
Right. Yeah, we're both on the GF train, right?
Yeah.
Right? And so, like, amazing breakfast, and then I follow a morning routine, the same morning routine every single day. And the thing is, for me, it's like, how else could I set myself up for success, right? In that, other than that, having the same routine, right? And the other thing, I gave some feedback to a gentleman today, is like, you have to pay attention. Pay attention to when you have a good day. Mm-hmm. Pay attention to when you have a bad day, right? So it's like, man, if you had a good day, how'd you have a good day? Oh, did you eat a good breakfast? Did you not pick up your damn phone until you had like your toads eaten or whatever the heck, or olives? Olives eaten? I don't know that terminology, but so you eat your olives. Like, what have you done that made a day such an amazing success? And do that again, and do it again. And if your day sucked, do less of that.
Yeah, right? And figure out why.
You gotta
right?
figure out why. You gotta pay attention, right? And so, like for me, I drink my jet fuel. I
want this jet fuel formula.
You want the jet fuel formula?
Yes.
I'll tell you right now, it's bad.
Don't you guys want this jet fuel formula? I want this jet fuel formula. Okay,
it's for my buddy. It's for my buddy Zach Ware. He knows all of like the science behind it. I'm like, dude, just give me the recipe.
Just give me.
Like I don't need to know. So it's a smoothie. I make it for my wife too. Every morning. It's almond milk.
Love it.
Or you can do coconut milk, whatever your dairy alternative, sugar. Right? So you got almond milk, unsweetened. Please.
Yes, no sugar.
So almond milk, power greens, which is kale, spinach, and chard. It comes in a mixture, right? Or you can mix it yourself.
Can you get that at Costco?
You can get that at Costco. That's where I get mine, right? And then so you got that, and you got carrots.
Carrots. Oh.
The weird one.
The beta.
The weird one is broccoli. Ooh. Right, so you put some raw frozen broccoli, also at Costco, super cheap organic broccoli. I put in MCT oil, good for the brain, kelp
Fish
powder,
oil.
which is good for your skin. And then a mixture of berries to make it a little bit more palatable.
Ooh, do you put any stevia in there just to make it a little sweet? No, you're good with no stevia. Huh?
It's not good. I mean, it's just like I just drink it.
But maybe you could put a little stevia in there because that doesn't add anything. Yeah. We have like the vanilla stevia. I hated stevia in the beginning. I've learned to like it because I don't do sugar. So I like this.
Yes, you could. Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna try it.
So that's my jet fuel, and I just put that thing down. I just drink it, man. And then it's like I follow Miracle Morning. You know Miracle Morning.
Oh yeah.
So I follow that. Right, so you've got like some meditation or prayer, whatever you want to do. You've got some journaling, you've got some reading, you've got some exercise, and you've got a couple other ones in there. You can look it up. But so that's what I follow. But the thing is, for me, the key is I put my phone on airplane mode at night when I go to bed.
Nice.
And I don't take it off
until you're done.
Until I'm done with my morning routine and what I call my big rocks. So it's whatever I need to do
for olives
to move the needle. Yeah. I'm doing that. It's like no meetings, no phone calls, no texts, right? Because text, email, phone call, all that stuff is
distractions.
It's everybody else's agenda for your day.
Right.
I'm setting my agenda, right? But when you pick up your phone, you're letting somebody else dictate your agenda, your schedule.
And your mood for a lot of times for some people, because I've seen people, I've been on trips with people and they'll pick up their phone and then after they're like crying or they're mad. I was like, what happened? They're like, I saw this Facebook post where I got this text. I'm like, you haven't even brushed your teeth. Why is your world falling apart already?
You can't let that noise in.
Right.
You can't. And so you get all that done. So, and I just read another book I've been preaching to everybody called The One Thing. Did I talk about it already?
Yeah. I ordered it on Amazon already.
It's amazing, dude. And so the book talks about you got to find out what your one thing is, and you do that for half a day. Not everybody can do it for half a day, but even if you like did your morning routine, had a really good breakfast, and worked on some of your one thing, he says 4 hours, maybe even did an hour. Then I went off airplane mode.
My one thing is live streaming with them. I'm just gonna like live stream for 6 hours and be like, hey guys, let's keep talking. Doing my one thing.
It might be too much.
Okay. We might scale that one back.
6, maybe do 4.
Okay,
I don't know.
just 4 hours.
Yeah,
no
but and then I turn off airplane mode. And
I'm gonna do that with the airplane mode.
Yeah.
The only thing is when I travel, I tend to leave it on at night because of the time difference that I'm going to bed, just in case something happens with my mom or my dogs while I'm gone, that I want to make sure I'm available.
I know. You got to figure out a way for them to contact you that's not through that.
Like the bat phone.
The bat phone or something. Yes. I almost want a dumb phone, like I want a flip phone. I can use that.
Yes.
And only like 2 people have the number.
Well, that's kind of with my business phone.
Yeah.
Only 2 people have my number. And then my other phone. So I could put the other one on airplane mode and keep it. See? We're going to do this. Get that slow hustle going.
Right, so just like some system, right? Some mechanism.
System is the key word, though.
Yeah.
I think that is the major key, if you will, to borrow from DJ Khaled, right?
Yeah.
That you need to have a system. And I think so many people go through life and let life happen to them instead of creating life.
Yeah, I use that phrase all the time because like when people are complaining and they're talking about something, I'm like, it sounds like you're letting life happen to you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, why? Like, dude, don't act like you're a victim, right?
Oh my God, I say that all the time. Like, you're the one driving. You need to figure out, this is why I talk about when I work with a lot of girls and boys that have been sexually abused, and I'll come in usually after a shoot, and I've come in and they're like, what do you know? You're white. I'm like, oh, that's funny. And like, I'll start taking like off my makeup and my, and all of a sudden I start speaking Spanish and I'm like, how did you learn Spanish? I was like, so I'm Latin, just so you know, I was born in LA. And then I like start like laying it down. They're like, oh, I didn't know. They're like, oh, well, you must be rich. I was like, no. So I was born in General Hospital. And like, we start going through everything. And they're like, wait, you're just like me. I'm like, yes. And I too was molested just like you. And I've learned to forgive them. And this is why I needed to forgive them, for me more so than even for them. And by you not letting that forgiveness into your life, you're empowering them to keep you in a victim mode and empowering them to not let you succeed and thrive the way you're meant to be. And it's interesting to see that shift physically happen right before my eyes, where they start crying or that light bulb goes off and they're like, oh my God, you're right. Like, I'm ready. I'm like, let it go. Literally let it go. You don't have to carry this bag of rocks with you. Leave it there, never to be found again. Move forward. It happened. It's part of your story. In an ideal world, of course, I'd love to be in a time machine, Back to the Future style, go back and have none of it happen to me. But I can't do that. What I can do is take the lessons I learned from it and now figure out how I can apply that to my life and how can I apply that to help others and then grow from it. And I think that's where the slow hustle is. That's where that ultimate success comes from. That's where that happiness comes from. And I'd love to ask you, I know one question that comes up to me is, well, you're so lucky to be happy. And I have such an issue with that word lucky and to be happy. I'm like, but happiness is a choice, right? And so what advice would you give to someone that doesn't know how to be happy, that they just feel like it's because you're lucky that you're this way?
So I've been talking to people a lot about this on this conference. It's like, if you could remove yourself from society, right? And just be like, okay, it's me and my spouse, it's me and my kids, whatever your situation is. Remove all outside expectation, right? So like, nobody's expecting anything from you. You don't have to worry about like what society says you're supposed to do or what your boss thinks you should do or what your parents think. What would you do, right? And figure out how to do that, right?
Every day.
Every day. And the thing is, like, people are like, oh, well, I can't just choose. Well, here's the thing, man. Like, you can get yourself on the path to that. And the problem is it's not typically everybody else to get you off the path. It's you to get yourself off the path. So somebody else today was like, man, you know, it was in a talk we were in, and they said, I'm a parent, and I'm dedicated to being a parent, and I'm in this certain, you know, space where, you know, what I'm doing for work, and I'm seeing people that started after me and they're more successful, they're making more money. It's because they don't have kids and they can grind, and I feel bad about it, but I also want to be a good parent. And I said, well, what's important to you?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want to do? And she said, well, I want to be a great parent. I go, well, it sounds like your priorities are already straight and you should forget about everybody else.
Yeah.
Stop comparing yourself to people. Like, comparison.
And their journey.
Dude, comparison is the enemy of contentment, right? So it's like, you cannot focus on that. And so if you can figure out what is it that makes you happy, like what's your ideal life look like, and work towards that and forget about what everybody else is doing,
that's it.
That's it, man.
Well, I also encourage people, I remind them all, we all get caught up in this system or cycle of being tied down by golden handcuffs, which is that job that's gonna like pay your mortgage this month and do this. And you're like, well, I don't really like it.
And it's not usually the job. Like, if you dig deep, it's the shit behind it.
Exactly.
It's all your stuff that makes you have to work. Like, I have people like, oh, your wife gets to stay home. That's nice. I wish I could do that. I'm like, well, you could. I drive 2 really old vehicles. I live in a small house because I don't want to have anybody working and doing anything they don't want to do. So you know that big house you have and the 2 nice cars? Guess what? You just get rid of them, you buy the small house up the street, and voila! Quit your job.
And I even tell my friends too, who will have their designer bags and they'll have their designer shoes and their designer cars, and these will be the same people who complain to me and tell me, it's not fair, you get to travel so much, I don't get to travel. I'm like, sell your Louis, sell your Christian Louboutins, guess what, you'll be able to go. Start looking for those flight deals, like set up a Google alert. And if it's really a priority to you, as my grandma would say, if you get a no, that just means you have to find another way to a yes, you will find that way. But you have to take that responsibility for it. And so when people, much like you said, you know, when people say, oh, well, it's because you're lucky, you're already happy. I'm like, no, it's a choice. I could choose to be miserable and be negative and cut myself off from everybody and sit in a corner and suck on my thumb all day long and be like, wow, that's my life. This just happened. But I feel like that's me letting myself down and letting down the sacrifices of everyone that's come before me to provide me with this amazing life. And I'm also letting down those that are going to come from me, like my children and everybody else, where I'm like, I could do better. So if I'm taking the lazy way out of being like, well, I'm just gonna stay in this cush job and get my bills paid, I don't really want to move anything, and I'll just complain about it when I'm, you know, old. then what the hell did I do this time around in this life, right?
Yeah. So there's top 5 regrets of the dying. It was a blog post in a book by Bonnie Ware. And number 1 regret was like not living the life you wanted to live, right? In some, some form of that, right? And it's like just regrets of things that you did not do.
Would you say you try to live your life, well, there's that word try. Would you say you live your life trying or attempting to not regret?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Same.
Yeah, I think about it all the time, and it's like, that's why I have mentors that are in their 60s, because it's like, I want to learn from you.
Yes.
Maybe I don't fully get exactly what you're saying because I haven't gone through those things, but I don't want to reinvent, right? I don't want to, you already made all the mistakes that I don't need to repeat those mistakes. Like, let me just learn from you if it's somebody that you respect and you look up to, right? And so, and the other thing is like, I shared this in this talk we just had. Part of the morning routine is visualization. And you think of positive visualization, like pictures, beach, whatever, whatever it is positive to you. And I do that. Like, I have pictures of me and the family on the beach, just like in our happy place. But then a lot of times I'll do negative visualization.
Really?
And so negative is like morbid shit. Like, like my wife has cancer, my kid dies. So it's like crazy shit. I got cancer, whatever, And I do it because it's like, wait a minute. Those are big deals, right?
Yes.
And so like any problem I have throughout the day, not a big deal. Not a big deal, because you know why? So you have that problem and maybe it would have been like a huge negative for your day, negative for your week, and you think, wait a minute, I would probably take 10 times this problem for my kid not to die.
Right.
This is nothing. Like, wait, I can breathe. Like sometimes when I'm walking in the morning, I'll have prayer time, and I'm like, I'm glad I can breathe.
Yep.
I can walk.
Yep.
I can see pretty well. I'm kind of blind, but I have contacts. Like, I can do those things. I'm not bitching about it.
I love it. Well, it's so funny. So on my way to the Olympics down to Rio, I had mishap after mishap with my flights. I think I told you there was water in our plane. We had to return back to the gate. Then we get to JFK, the flight got delayed. Then another one got canceled. Then the one we were on, as we're getting on, some wacko decides to go into JFK and start shooting in the airport. So then they evacuated JFK. Luckily, we were on the plane. And I was Snapchatting this whole adventure. And people are like, maybe it's a sign from the gods. You're not supposed to go to Rio. And I was like, if this last plane does not let me get there, I'm gonna take it as a sign. But I said, you know what, through this whole thing, I said, guys, let's at least be happy with the fact that I am alive, I can walk, I can breathe.
Yeah.
I went through all these things and I said, so all these other things are just first world problems that we're having that we don't really need to worry about. And they're like, how can you be so positive about it? I'm like, because I can walk, I can breathe, I have the luxury of doing this.
Yes.
I have, a family that loves me. I have you guys. I have friends that love me. So the flight gets delayed.
Yeah.
Oh well, what are you gonna do?
That's
as long as I get there safely, I would rather wait for another flight than take a plane that has water coming down the aisle. Like, I was not on a cruise. I was supposed to be on a plane. Last time I checked, planes aren't supposed to have water in the middle of the aisles. So it's funny because it really puts me in that mode of gratitude, but also of perspective, because I think we get so caught up in these first world problems sometimes that we're just like, oh, this is everything. This is just the worst thing since sliced bread, right?
Yeah.
But I would challenge, or I would ask, why do we have to visualize having cancer? Because that gives energy to that.
I guess for me, I don't see it that way.
Okay. Because could we just visualize like?
What would be a good negative visualization?
Yes. So, like a good. Oh, just that word. Whew. Oh, it's making me sweat. Could it be more kind of like putting things in perspective? Like, case in point, when I was in Brazil, I saw these kids who were barefoot and they were walking the streets and were trying to sell coconuts, doing their best to sell coconuts just to get something to eat. So I stopped, I bought some coconuts from them and I overpaid them, and they're like, no, I don't need it. I was like, no, you keep it. And there was something so pure and innocent that they were trying to give me back the proper change that just like melted my heart. And I said, no, you need this more than I do. In my head, I didn't want to insult them, but I was like, oh no, it's fine. And I gave it to them, and I remember taking a stop and I looked up and I was like, okay. So I do these things I call mental pictures. Okay. So I pretend, and I sometimes, if I didn't have a coconut in my hand, I would have, but sometimes I will literally do that clicking sound just to like stop, so I mentally have that picture and really just sat with that feeling. And I said, this is what you need to remember the next time you even think about bitching. So for me, those are kind of the things that I do. I know when I've gone through life and things have been difficult, and sometimes I've said, well, it's so unfair, because we're human, right? And we all have that relapse. I think of my grandmother, and I think of the fact that she came to this country. You know, the border essentially crossed that side of the family. It was Spain, then it became Mexico, then it became the United States. So she ends up coming to this country after marrying my grandfather, who's from here, and it was a matter of paying 5 cents, and you cross the border, and now all of a sudden you're in this new place called the US, yay. So you're here, and she didn't speak the language. She put my mom, though, without speaking the language, put my mom through private school. Instead of taking the money that they were giving her to go learn English classes, she took that money so that she could go to private school.
Wow.
She took the bus every single day to get to work. She was never on welfare. She raised my mom to be, immaculately smart and be an entrepreneur. She was an amazing seamstress that was hired to do like this it's called overlack, that 1 in like 10 people could do in her time when she was when she was alive, because she would do it comparative to a machine. So she honed in on her one thing and killed it, because she knew that was going to be her exit for her kid, right? Yeah. So she didn't have a car, right? So at times I say, oh my God, it's so hard. I'm like, why is that? Oh, she had a 3rd grade education. I literally will put myself in that. You went to an Ivy League school, you speak 3 languages, you have a car, you have a roof. I'm like, shut up, Liza, you need to just stop. So it really sets me down. So I guess I look at those things as opposed to putting negative energy in what may happen to someone I love, because I don't know. They say like if you focus on something, it can grow, because cancer comes from stress and stuff.
Sure
so maybe don't do that. I'm like, oh my God.
I'll try your method.
Yeah, just try. We'll just do. We'll just do.
We'll do it.
We'll do.
We'll not try. I will not try.
No. You know the whole thing about try, right?
I do.
Like, this is my mom's favorite. Do you mind if I share this with you guys?
Do it.
Okay, so, and everyone at home can do it too. So, do me a favor. I'm going to ask you to do 3 things.
I'm
so
ready.
Do me a favor. Stand up.
Okay.
Now, Peter, are you standing or are you sitting?
I'm standing.
Okay, unequivocally, it is safe to say that you are standing.
Yes.
Okay, so at home, I would ask them to ask themselves if they're standing or sitting right now. They should be standing. Great. Peter, do me a favor and sit down. Okay, so unequivocally, it would be safe to say that you are
sitting.
No judgment about that, right? You are sitting. So at home, are you sitting or standing? This would be the time to be sitting, okay? Now, Peter, do me a favor and try to stand up. Go ahead, try to stand up. Because right now you're still sitting.
I'm gonna try to stand.
I want you to try to stand. So now you're standing.
My mic's about to fall.
Yeah, that's standing. I said try to stand.
Yeah, it's like this.
And that's squatting. That's still not, right? So my mom would always say, you're either sitting or standing. So you're either doing or you don't. Pick one, stand behind it, acknowledge it, own it, and move on. So this is the mom that I literally was raised with. So when you ask me how did I do it, she was a really big part of it, in that she made sure that there was no half-assing anything. I was all in one way or another.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, we'll wrap with a couple rapid-fire questions.
Okay.
What gets you most excited?
Waking up every morning.
Waking up every morning. Because you have a singular focus.
Because I'm alive. And one day I'm not going to wake up and I'm going to be 6 feet under. So every single day that I can wake up and do this again.
That's true gratitude.
Yeah, I'm very blessed. I'm like, yes, today I get to do this. I can live life. Because the day it doesn't happen, I'm not sure what happens if you register with yourself, I'm dead and in a coffin or whatever. I've tried not to focus on that, but I know that day is going to happen one time. And I guess then that's another journey, right? That I'll have to embrace when it happens.
Why is the message of slow hustle important to you?
It's important because of what I was speaking to you earlier, elegant excellence. So I think we can, when we are intentional about our path and where we're going, we can do it in a way that allows us to breathe and fully absorb everything around us and be more present. And what I've noticed, and I've now A/B tested this unintentionally, when I go very fast, my mind works very quickly, and that's fine, but I could still work quickly and be intentional and slow. When I am like, oh, it's fine, whatever, I'm gonna cheat myself and just, let me hurry this, let me get my passport, let me pack, da-da-da-da. I always forget something, or I lose something, or I end up buying the wrong ticket or the wrong seat, and I'm like, gosh darn it. And it ends up taking me twice as long to get it done had I just as my grandma used to say, measure twice, cut once. Like if I had just taken my slow paced way of going through things.
I love it. Liza, it's been awesome.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Feel free to connect with me at XOXOLiza with 2 Z's, please, on all things social. I'd love to hear from you. And make sure to keep following this guy because he rocks the Casbah.